All right. After his death, is that what made you want to start Alliance of Concerned Men, or be a part of, encouraging young black youth to achieve higher?
When Rodney died, and so many kids were being killed in our communities, and it just didn't seem like anything was being did. It seemed like it was just a waste of life with nothing being put in place. The government didn't seem like they were doing a thing, our communities weren't doing it, and our children was constantly dying. So I said, well, man, to a degree that, let's try to do something to stop the loss of our children's lives. So, where Rodney dying, getting killed, and so many other kids getting killed, and me looking at it from the perspective that I played a part in this death, I said, let's do something. So I got a couple of my buddies together, and began to tell them what we could do. The amazing thing about that is that, as I mentioned, I got locked up again, and I saw over in Maryland how the guys were really able to talk to the kids and could have had an impact, but they didn't understand that. So I said, we can take who we are and begin to talk to the kids and get them to stop doing what they're doing. And that was the perspective of it, to black men come together to be able to create a means to stop the killing in our communities. And the amazing thing about it was that maybe some 5 years later, there was a guy that I met over in the Maryland system named Clyde Dixon, strong kid, strong guy, ran to prison. And I told him about the idea during the time I was there. And he didn't understand the concept of what they could do in the higher spirit. And when I saw him 5 years later, he came over to DC and said, Tyrone, man, I want to start a group like the Alliance. And I said, man, I've been told you that y'all could do this, So, but it was just the spirit. There was a transformational spirit where you had people that was basically a part of the problem, was able to come back for a part of the solution. But at one point, we didn't understand what our capabilities were. We didn't understand the impact of what we could do, because we just didn't see it in that perspective, transforming wrong into right, and that we would be the barriers of that. It was just an inconceivable concept that I think have taken on a life of its own now, where you have so many people that's coming out of prisons and so many people that's helping to transform the culture of our community now to the point that it's making a transformation. We're turning this ocean liner around, where we're seeing signs that our kids are not the same as they once were. When the Alliance first got started, it was around about 500 a year that was basically being killed. This year here, it looks like we're going into 130 something or 140 something. So you're almost talking about almost 300. And some mothers or fathers that don't have to cry at a funeral or don't have to lose their children. Where we're turning this thing around, where their behavior is becoming like a geek look, instead of the thug look, where they're wearing thick glasses and their tight pants. And I mean, the behavior patterns are changing, from, even the Islamic piece is playing a major part. So I think, to a very large degree, this thing is making it, we're turning this ocean liner around, and we're seeing kids coming back as better kids than they used to be, as a community. And I think one of the things that we've got to understand, we've got to understand our victories. We got to be able to understand what a victory is, and understand that it's not going to never be picture perfect, but to be able to see them making their behavior is changing. Where at one point in time, it was embarrassing for kids to be smart. Now it's not, So those are victories for us as a community, So I think we're seeing some good times. Even while they're difficult times, we're seeing the best of the worst now. But they are victories for us, as a community. And a lot of this led from, I think, our participation in having the spirit that we're going to make a difference in our communities. So, Rodney played a major part for me as a person, for the input that I'm having in the communities that I'm a part of. God works in mysterious ways, you know, and he brings us here today, you know, in death. You know, like I say, at one point in time I had reluctancies about speaking, you know. And I speak all the time, but it still was a fear, it was a great fear. But after I started looking at Rodney and seeing what he could do, I said, if my boy can do that, he come from me, I know I can do it. So he sends messages, even in death, to be able to make a difference. You know, so, you know, it's just been an interesting journey for me. You know, I tell my grandson when we first started thinking about the idea of doing this, I said, man, we could take this idea and take it and it can become something where folks can build up around, man. Because Rodney left us something. In death, he left us a message that we could carry. A message of who he was. In death, he came back and delivered it to us. And all we have to do is just pick it up and just carry it on and make it to a greater good. He did this in death. He said, look, man, this is what I'm giving y'all. Who I was, who I am. Now take it and make something out of it. People still love him, still respect him. 20 years later, we building something into that. Now that shows you the monumentalness of who he was and the spirit that he delivered and the impact. So, you know, like, to me, it's just extraordinary, you know, to come back of who he was and what he did and what he continued to do. It's amazing.
How did you find out about his death?
Well, Jaylyn called me, his sister. She called me and I was home in bed. And he said, Rodney been shot. I asked the question, how bad? Because I never thought it was death. She said, he dead. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. She said he was shot. I asked the question, how bad? She said, dead. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
You have any questions?
I don't even know where to begin, Mr. Parker. Maybe just one question. It's okay. I had the opportunity to be here during one mentoring meeting, and downstairs in the conference room there was there were 9 young men, and I think it was Mr. Yenga who asked a question. Who is the most important person in your life, in your upbringing? And every single one of the young men, they said, my mother. And then Mr. Yenga was very surprised and he followed up with a question and he said, but why is there? Was there no father, important figure for anybody? And they said, there was no father. So we're talking about your youth, right? And how different perhaps it was then. You used the words rites of passage, right? As it was almost like an entering into adulthood then, right? To go in a prison. But what is the situation like now?
I think that the numbers are still very much the same in regards to fathers not being in our communities. And that's due to incarceration to a very large degree. When the time you had this country that leads the nation in regards to incarceration, it took an impact on our communities. And consequently, as I mentioned, the mothers were left there to raise the kids. But this generation, or the past generation, and I'm mixing it too, was hit where the community was not there, the family was not there, the church was not there, you know, the government recreation centers were not there. So our kids got hit on 3 to 4 different occasions at the same time. Institutions that basically have helped to sustain our communities were not there, but the father loss was one of the greatest, because you have to have a mentor in this world that we live, that we in. There is no roadmap to how to be a good father. There is no roadmap. And consequently, we learn from each other. And by the not having a father in the community, it just hurts you. There's, even at the points of times, we've always had something with society would consider as illegal. We always have somebody that's either selling liquor, or somebody that was writing numbers. But these people were foundations in our community. They help you go to school. They make sure you didn't disrespect Miss Sadie. There was always a balance in there from those individuals to a large degree. But when it got to the point that it just suddenly took all of our men, a large amount of our men out of the community, where you having 2 and 3 generations in one jail, you know, where the kids are saying, well, we can't do family reunions no more. Why? Because our uncles and our fathers and our grandfathers are all locked up. You know, when the impact has been as drastic as it has occurred in this country, that's sinful for us to be at the magnitude of where it's at now. So the father situation, but I think that we've learned valuable lessons in regards to mentoring and men stepping up into the communities to give the example. Even while not being able to be there for a long period, you had a brief period when you opened the window and they were able to see individuals that were mentoring and working.